Growing up in my childhood home, the backyard was always used for many purposes. From parties to planting, many activities have taken place within the backyard. Throughout my years, my dad would always tell me it was essential to work with your hands and learn how to use tools that would always come in handy someday. For me, I would always craft and build objects in the backyard that consisted of wood and resin or whatever scraps I could find laying around. It was a peaceful atmosphere since it was just me and the tools. Through this current design project, I chose to create a large-scale resin and wood design that was different than my normal projects. I decided to create a table that had both elements connected to create one solid object. To start the process, I created a digital template that had each size and dimension of all the wood members I needed to create the table. Then in a family member's backyard, I began cutting all the pieces and made sure they were at the correct lengths. It was a peacefully warm day and allowed me to be outside, and it felt like I was back home in my own backyard building again. Once I cut out all of my wooden elements, I needed to create a box frame that would be used to pour the resin into. To make sure it all stayed secure, I added layers of sheathing tape that does not stick to the resin and would make the demolding process easier. This was a process I had never done before in some of my small-scale resin projects. However, I have seen just how complicated it could be to remove if something like this was not used to help out. Once the wooden members were glued together and sanded to a smooth texture, I decided to add definition to my project. I chose to stain the wood elements on my table to give it a different hue than its natural green tint. I selected a darker mocha color because it reminded me of many elements in my backyard back home. I thought it would also have a nice contrast to the pigment I planned to add to my resin. The smell of the wood stain is very strong, so I made sure to finish this process as quickly as possible. Once the elements were stained, I let them dry out for a day so the color would set in nicely. I then moved on to the epoxy resin, which was a 1-to-1 ratio where I needed about 80 ounces to fill the mold. I added an aqua color pigment that reminded me of water and just how close I lived to the ocean back home and could always smell the salt in the air. Now that the resin had cured for a full 24 hours, I removed it from the mold and gave it a pass with the sander to remove some of the hard edges that it left behind. At this point as well, I decided to add metal legs that were another element that I thought could create more depth within this table. Finally, after a week's process, I was able to reap the rewards of having a nice table that could sit on the edge of my couch and be used for in-house activities. This table is a great reminder of how far I've come from just taking many opportunities to learn and use tools in the comfort of my own backyard.